Well, hello again.
Hello.
Welcome to
We're
another
here.
edition of Something to Talk About. I've got my very, very best friend in the studio with me today.
Yes, you do. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for asking.
And we're going to have a good time today because we've been talking this week a little bit about, everything revolves around coronavirus and all, and what are we doing and how is everybody coping with it?
Right.
And part of the puzzle is the education aspect of what's going on. And the kids are out of school as they normally would be because it's summertime, but they went through a very tough spring because they were sequestered at home. They had to do their schooling virtually, and now we're facing: are the schools going to open in the fall, and in what form? Is it still going to be virtual? Is it going to be back face to face? So we've been talking about it. We thought, this is something that we want to kind of share with some other people that we know. So we're inviting three family members with us. We're inviting our son, Jeremy Sax, who is a parent and also part-time homeschooler. We also have our niece, Jessica Shane, who is with us, and she is an elementary school teacher. And also our niece, Hailey Finer, who is a school counselor. So we're going to get a really good conversation going because it's going to affect everybody on your screen as to what's going to be going on in just another month or two, where we're going to be and what we're going to do. So Hailey and Jessica, Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's great to have all of you on the show with us and to see you. And I'm going to start. I want to start with Jessica because you lost out on teaching your students in the springtime. Now it's summertime. You have to start working on lesson plans for the fall. And are those lesson plans going to be in person or are they going to be virtual? What's your psyche like now in the summertime, getting ready for the fall?
Well, I'm still currently teaching summer school, which has been good.
Is that virtually?
Yep, it's all virtually right now with our state, the state of Florida. That's where we live. In our Hillsborough County, we have a few different options, and they just actually put it out to the parents to make their big choice for what they want to do with kids in the fall. And the first one is in the school, brick and mortar. We're going full force. No masks, no really class size reduction, just how it was before we left. That was option one. Option two was a form of e-learning, which is tied to your school. And it's kind of like a combination of you might be in the school, or it's going to be just online, but the teachers are actually teachers from the school. So, and we kind of have to wait on numbers, and that'll determine how many teachers per grade level will actually not have students in their classroom, but will have students virtually. And then the third option, which is it consists of two different things. You're just choosing virtually, and we have something called Hillsborough Virtual and then Florida Virtual. The biggest difference that I can see is that with Hillsborough Virtual, it keeps the money with the school districts, and the schools themselves aren't losing money. But then if you do Florida Virtual, all that money goes to the state. So parents have to make that decision, and that's kind of what they're doing. The biggest hurdle that I'm seeing is actually for teachers with school age kids, because regardless, even if they choose e-learning for their kids, they themselves as a teacher still have to go back to the school.
And that's got to be a kind of a difficult position because if the kids do go back physically to school, are all of the parents going to send their children, or is it going to be? I mean, the upside is you could end up with a smaller school classroom size, but it's going to create another problem of how do you control all the students in school and virtually.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we are kind of facing. And the biggest concern is, will some of these teachers be actually losing their jobs? Because if our units get cut, and we don't have enough for actual in-class kids, or the parents are choosing for the kids to do it online, then what are these teachers going to do? Because virtually, I don't know what the class size is virtually. I know over the summer it was more than what I would have had in the classroom. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do.
And when will you know? Are they giving you a date?
Yeah, I believe they have another week to decide, and I'm not sure if they've extended it or not, but I know I have friends who have kids who they've gotten the letters, and it is a different letter for each child. So you can choose one thing for an elementary school student and something else for a middle school and for a high school student. So I would assume within the next week, we're really going to know some definite numbers, because in 3 or 4 weeks, we're supposed to be going back for pre-planning.
Now, Hailey, you work as a counselor, and so you're almost a little more on the administration side of what's happening with all of this. What's the buzz around your schools and with the administration? They must be going absolutely crazy right now because they're faced with those same decisions that'll affect Jessica. It's a decision of what do we do and when.
Right. So, I'm in middle school, so it's a little bit different. But essentially it's all the same. But we don't really know either. We go back mid-August, and we were not given we're told that we won't get an answer until end of July, August.
Wow.
That's late.
So that's really late. But basically what she said is what we know as well. Our, last something I heard that an idea is that I'm a sixth grade counselor, and they did speak of having sixth grade come back and do mixed learning. So that would be, I'm in a different county than Jessica, up in South Florida and in Broward County. And Broward County has spoken about doing, kids would come into school 2 days a week, and then they would dedicate Wednesdays to cleaning. So they've talked about sending in sixth graders for 2 days a week only, and seventh and eighth grade would not come in at all. That was an idea that was thrown out there for us. And as far as elementary, I think it would be, those big grade levels, like the third grade they would do it with, and either like first grade as well. They spoke about, but that's, that's really as far as I know as well. They have not made a decision. My principal doesn't know, there's a lot of chatter, but there's no definite answers. They do have parents, staff, and anyone, with the surveys, just like Jessica said, they sent out, and it's, model A, B, and C, and parents, staff, anyone who took the survey got to, have an input. But when we got those back, it was kind of split. It was like 36% of parents and staff had said that they wanted to go back full time. And then another 30%, said that they were okay with mixed mode. So it was all kind of split. There wasn't one main area.
All right, so now I turn the focus to Jeremy, and given some of this information, and of course, Hailey and Jessica are in Florida. You're here in Texas, but just based on those comments, well, maybe this grade will go 2 days a week and 3 days a week and all. When you hear that, as a parent who also is strapped with the responsibility of working with your son on his education, either at school or at home, parents are going to have to do all kinds of work trying to determine what their schedules are going to be. Who's going to be home? Who's going to go to work when, and how to juggle this whole issue. When you hear this talk about maybe they'll go back to school and they're not going to decide for another month. How does it affect you as a parent?
Well, first and foremost, in this entire pandemic and having to not only be a parent but be an e-learning teacher, which means we have to learn what we're teaching Liam before we can teach Liam. So there's double work on that. I first and foremost have to say that I'm all in favor of doubling or even tripling the income for our teachers and educators in this world. So that's something that is clearly I've seen is they are completely underpaid. So Jess, Hailey, I hope you guys at some point get a big bonus. And if I lived in Florida, I'd vote for my tax dollars to increase. So all that being said, it's tremendous pressure. I mean, I'm lucky that I work for an organization that allows me to be really, really flexible. In years past, I probably would not have that flexibility. So it's tremendously stressful to have to manage your professional career and then, be a pseudo teacher. And, when this first started, Kristen was working 5 days a week and I had to be the homeschooler teacher, if you will. And it was incredibly stressful. And then she got furloughed and I was elated that she got furloughed, so I didn't have to deal with it anymore. And unfortunately, she went back to work. So we'll just have to see what happens. I have a feeling, like Jessica and Hailey said, they have probably a lot more insight than us parents do right now. And it's going to be real interesting to see what happens.
So, I would hate to be in this kind of a position, especially if I am a school administrator, because, I'm kind of damned if I do and damned if I don't. If I make the decision to open the schools to everyone, I'm going to get flack from some of the parents. And if we decide to keep the schools closed, you're going to get flack from the school administration. It's a tough decision that they're in right now. And like Jess, you said that you may hear something in another week of what's going on. Hailey, you said they may not make a decision until the beginning of August. And there's talk of the schools, some of the schools, even in Texas, are talking about trying to reopen by the middle of August. So it's a very, very short window to try and get all of this in place. Are you hearing, Jess and Hailey, are you hearing from some of the parents? You mentioned that they're trying to bring them into the equation to find out what is the feeling among parents about what should happen for their kids in the fall for school.
I've spoken to a lot of parents, and kids I babysit. I come in contact with a lot of parents, and 9 out of 10, I would say that they want their kids full time back in school. It's
face to face with their teachers.
Yeah, it's really hard for these kids and parents as well. Firsthand, I babysit 2 girls, one's 5 and one's 10, and the mom works at home, and the 5-year-old is bored every 2 minutes. I don't know how a parent can balance working and teaching them school and keeping them occupied. So every parent I've spoken with is really all for just going back.
Do you think that they're saying that they want the kids to go back for the sake of the student to be with their teachers for those hours every day? Or are they saying it for their personal reasons that they just want to get the kids out of the house and back into the school?
I'd say a mix of both. Definitely personal, but definitely these parents, they're not all of them, like Jeremy says, he has to first learn the material and then he has to teach it to his child, so some of these parents, you have a kid in middle school or high school, these concepts only get harder. So, a lot of these kids do need a teacher to teach them this stuff.
I have a question. None of you had any idea what was happening or how to go about doing your job when the schools closed in March, April, whenever they closed? March. Are you getting any help, any feedback now if the schools will be closed as to getting more help as to how to teach virtually, how to do your job, Hailey, as a counselor, or are you still in the same place you were in March?
I mean, I can talk for teacher wise, at least for our county, they have done a lot. We had there were plans already drawn up for us that we could kind of look at as a guide and we could go from there. And they were really and they were very detailed. And so in addition to that, we had a lot of professional development as well, that helped a lot too. However, they are switching, I guess, platforms. We use something called Edsby, and now we're switching to a platform called Canvas. So, I mean, we'll have to relearn that if we're going back to full e-learning, and so will the kids. But there has been a lot of help. Because I'm more reading and writing, and there were weekly meetings that I attended, and I would take things back. I could share with my team. We had team planning sessions that were going on. So Zoom was our best friend. It still is my best friend right now at the moment. So it's good. We're using a lot of interactive things. We also didn't want to bombard the kids too much with new information because, I mean, just like Jeremy was saying, we understood the parents had to learn a lot of the schoolwork. And I just know, because I'm very close with the math teacher who taught my students math, it's very different from the way that even Hailey and I learned math. Math is a whole different ballgame. So some of these parents, they had to really reteach themselves these math concepts. And so we had to definitely keep that in mind. So that we didn't want to overwhelm them, but at the same time, we needed to challenge the kids. And we did use a lot of fun, engaging technology websites, and we tried. I mean, and it's going very well. I will say that we adapted very quickly. The kids adapted. I think that because most kids are very technology savvy nowadays, that definitely helped. I mean, at least I can speak for the 3rd and 4th graders that I've been teaching.
You know, now that Liam has popped into the picture, you know, Liam, you can give your opinion on what we're talking about now. How do you feel as a student? You've been doing your schooling online, virtually and all, and now they're talking about, well, are you going to go back to the school to learn in the fall, or are you going to be at home and learning? What if it was your choice? What would you want to do?
Work home.
You like working at home? Why?
Because I don't have to, like at school, I don't take breaks, and I do.
Oh, you take breaks at home?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now, how are you going to feel if they say, okay, Liam, we're going to open up the school and you're going to go back and all? Do you think it's going to be hard to go back and learn in the classroom again after being at home and learning like in front of the computer?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think you'll be able to do it okay?
I wouldn't like it.
You like it?
But isn't the work harder on the computer?
Mm-hmm.
It's harder.
Yeah, but at school, that's all we do is work on the computer.
Good point. That's a good point.
Well, but who would you rather be teaching you? Mom or dad, or your teacher at school?
Mom and dad.
Mom and dad?
Okay, so who would you rather teach you, mom or dad?
Mommy?
Yeah.
Because daddy's tougher, isn't he?
Yeah. Who's tougher?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
And I want to say that's probably the response that most kids are giving is that they do like being, it's like a split 50-50 where they either really like being at home because they can take the breaks, they can do everything in their bed, they can be in their pajamas. But the other aspect, I don't even know if it's they miss their teacher, they miss their friends. That's the biggest thing that I'm hearing. Whenever we have our Zoom calls, it's the first 5 to 10 minutes. I let them talk and I tell me about your day, what's going on. They just miss that interaction.
And Hailey, what do you do? Are you calling parents to check up on the kids?
So, yeah, my role kind of, it doesn't change, but my focus, if I was at school, my focus would be the kids. Now I would say my focus is kids and parents. So we use the platform Canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I used it in college, so I'm very familiar with it as is, but, and some teachers were using it already. Some teachers weren't, so a lot of our kids were used to it, but my main job every day was, these teachers would email me who's not logging in because we can see their login and we can see their login. And I would, hunt them down and I would call and email and message them on Canvas, like, what are you doing? You haven't done this, and I get it, sometimes we get technical difficulties or, there was a pandemic. So, parents are going through a lot. There's a lot of changes, so sometimes school can get put on the back burner. But my main job was calling and, really trying to get in contact with these kids. But it's difficult. I can only call so many times. And school, at least I have that child there, and I can say, have that face-to-face conversation, or I can, get them to get a parent for me. But this after so many times.
There's only so much you can do.
And then, for them to call me back, my number was generated through the computer. So I would have to say, email me, or I'll try you again at this time. It's very difficult.
So, Liam, would you say most of your school friends have iPads or computers at home?
Yes.
Okay. So I asked Jessica and Hailey, what happens if someone doesn't have a computer at home?
We did. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I just read that there are corporations that are handing out devices. I don't know if they say devices, they don't say computers, iPads, or what, to so many schools.
Our teachers have like carts in their room, like laptops, nothing like crazy, just like, a Dell laptop or something like that. And so the principal went in, the media specialist went in, a couple secretaries, and we had distribution days, and kids could come pick up computers, and it got assigned to them. And that it was like you get a book from the media center, except you're getting a computer and you log it, you sign it out, and then come fall, hopefully we're back in school. That's when they'll return it. So right now they still have their computer.
And what about you, Jessica? How was it?
Yeah, we did something almost the exact same thing. It was, if you did not have a laptop at home, we are I believe almost a one-to-one school, meaning for every student there's a laptop. And if they didn't have a laptop, they would get a laptop. And if there were 5 kids in the family, there were 5 different laptops. And I know that we donated some of our laptops to the local high school that's right by us. And we gave out a lot of laptops. We did have a few days where they had to come return their laptops. And if they were doing summer school, they had to keep the laptops. And then next week, they're supposed to be returning them. And I know they put into the budget, if some do go missing or some aren't returned, that's all being taken care of.
Wow, that's incredible.
All right, so
and there was free internet too. The district got them free internet.
So now Liam had indicated that he would really prefer staying home and doing his learning on the computer and all. And I think that's for obvious reasons, because it's easier to take a break go get something to eat.
And be in your pajamas.
Yeah, do it on the couch instead of sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that a lot of the school children feel that way. The parents, on the other hand, probably say, we need the freedom. We just don't have the ability to work our jobs and our lives around trying to learn what we now have to teach to the children. And the teachers also may lose a handle. So, Jeremy, given that scenario, even though your son would love to stay in his pajamas and go to school online every day, what do you feel is maybe the best mode for parents of children of school age?
Well, first, before Liam goes away, we have to take a vote because Jess was always known for her crazy hair. What do you think about this, Jess? Hailey?
I think he's got me beat.
Yeah.
Want to say goodbye?
Bye.
Thank you, Liam.
Seeing you.
See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liam.
You're welcome.
So if I remember, the question is, what would be best for the parents in this situation? Really, I think it's up to the individual parents, and just like Jessica and Hailey said, and we're waiting for our school district to, let us know what's going to happen. But we already know that we have the option of either sending our kids back or keeping them at home. And my first feeling was send them back. And then, mom and dad, as you guys know, because I even called you, we talked about it a little bit, then I'm kind of having second guesses, like, is it best for him to stay home? I don't know. So I'm really on the fence about it. Obviously, he wants to stay home because that way he can do e-learning in his underwear and, spend 2 hours a day on it instead of 8 hours in school. But I think it all depends on the families. There's a lot of families that they have, either single parents and they have to work and they really depend on their kids going to school. There's parents where both parents work, where they depend on the kids going to school. So some families don't really, have a choice. And if the kids have to stay at home, then that brings a whole nother can of worms into the equation.
Jess and Hailey, do you think that if that option is on the table for the parents to keep the kids home, they may want to keep the kids home simply because of a fear of a spike in the virus again? But as educators, do you think that that's the best, avenue for the children? Because are they really going to get a good quality education by trying to do it at home and you having to juggle between what they're doing at home and what they're doing in the school?
I think, like Jeremy said, it's really up to the parents. It's their personal opinions. I know that when Jake was home with me, it was hard. It was really hard. Because he's 2.5, so having a 2.5-year-old and I'm trying to teach, it was really hard. So and he just missed his friends. The number one thing is he missed his friends. I think it depends on the teacher. It depends on the quality of work that teacher is going to give. It's hard for me to say one over the other. I know that I miss the kids. I miss pulling small groups. I miss having those conversations. Just, how are you doing? How's your morning? I miss the high fives. I miss the hugs. But I know in reality, I also have to think about my family too. And I think that's one of the big risks that teachers now, are people who are working on the front lines, they're facing, because and especially if it's not mandatory to wear that mask, it's very hard because I do have to think about my family. I have to think about Jake, who, if I bring something home, and then what happens? So it's a big, I think the best thing, I read something where you go behind closed door with your partner and you talk about it and you come back with, this is what we decided, and you both have to support that 100%. And then your child will really be okay with it. So I think it's really a personal opinion.
Yeah, well, that's why this has become such a tough discussion, is because, are the teachers now going to have to take extra steps to make sure that all the desks are wiped down? Are they going to make sure that all the kids use hand sanitizer? Are they going to use masks or not? How is the curriculum going to be affected? How is the daily schedule in the school going to be affected? And then the other part of the discussion is, if the parents don't feel that the time is right and want to keep the kids at home, their lives get turned upside down because they've got to make the preparations to have their child at home and work with them and oversee their progress in school. I just keep thinking about what is the best avenue for the development of the child, because are they going to be falling behind because they're given that freedom? And while Jeremy and Chris are very, very good about making sure that Liam has that, how many parents are out there that are telling the child, just sit down and do your homework, turn on the computer and do your homework, and they don't give them the help that they need? Is that going to set the child back? So many aspects to this whole conversation.
Well, and that goes into a question I had for Hailey, because as a counselor, you do have some children that you have to see, parents that you have to talk to, I'm sure, on a regular basis, or maybe not a regular basis, but you have difficulties. How is this COVID virus? There's got to be more problems at home? I can't imagine.
So I'll speak to my school. My school is interesting. We have about 2,100 kids for 6th, 7th, and 8th, and it's kind of split. I would say half of those kids come from not a great area, and the other half come from a very, wealthy area. It's interesting where we come from. So, half of our kids do have the resources, and they do have families to support them and, teach them and help them if they need. But then, like you said, there's a lot of kids who I worry about, a lot of kids who are frequent flyers in my office who completely fell off the deep end. They have no internet at home. They have no, they have no internet. They have no support. They're in a single parent home, and the kid tells me his sleeping situation, and it's not one that you would ever want. He comes to school because he eats, and I don't know how much he eats to get to him, because it's just not a fun situation for him. And he's those kids are the type of kids that really I feel for, and they need to be in school because they turned in just no work. And I don't know if other counties did this, but like Broward County sent out a sliding scale to teachers. So because of everything going on, if a kid turns in 0 work, usually they would get an F. If a kid turns in 0 work, the sliding scale was they could get a D and still pass. So, there was a lot of different things sent out, but it's really, like you said, it's challenging. There's a lot of kids that need to be at school, but then, it goes back to, like Jessica and Jeremy said, it's a personal preference, and it's what the parents want, and there's a lot of other factors. When it's in middle school, they're not sitting in one classroom all day. They're rotating. Every 50 minutes, there's 2,000 kids in the hallway. Lunchtime comes and it's like stuffed sardines in a cafeteria. It's 700 kids sitting in one place. That you can't do that now. It has to look different, and for everyone. What would buses look like? There's just so many factors that we all have to think about, and as parents have to think about, because they want their kids to be safe.
Yeah, I would say, Jessica and Jeremy, I really give you props. I just to have to work and raise a family, I can't imagine. I really can't. I mean, I can see it through Jeremy's eyes because I'm closer to him. We're in Texas, but yeah, I don't know how you do it.
I mean, Jake was is really pretty good. He would have his moments, but I mean, especially we were kind of in the middle of potty training, so that was nice. I kind of put a preference out there saying, you know, Jake's home. He would sometimes make an appearance. The kids really loved seeing him, and even when we were back at school, they loved just finding out about your personal life. They love knowing all of that. And a lot of the parents too, when they would see that, hey, this teacher has a kid at home, I think it kind of put them at ease too, because they could tell, like, there's a couple of times where Jake had some emotions and he was feeling some things, and they saw that, and I would put the video, or not the video, but the microphone on mute and say, just give me a minute, and we would go about our day. And it was, so like I said, we adapted. The kids were really, the ones that showed up and who would really try and do work, they would do great. There were some kids who probably were like Liam, and they would say, I did it where I would give a lot of the work out on Monday and kind of said, this is what's due each day. Everything is due by Friday. And I would have daily Zoom meetings for them. And I did have office hours. So if they did need questions, I was on Zoom and they could pop in, pop out. And some of the kids, they would do everything on Monday and Tuesday, and they would have the rest of the week. If they had questions, they would come in. And for some kids, that works. And if that works for them, that's great. I think it is setting them up, because a lot of colleges now are online. So it's setting them up great for that aspect of it. But I always just think about, I guess, something similar to what my sister Hailey was saying, the emotional aspect of some of these kids, because school is their safe place. This is where they get their food. Hillsborough County did a grab and go, so they provided breakfast and lunch, and they were doing that still throughout the summer, which is great. But I feel for, there's a few kids in my classroom who I just felt for, and almost every day, every other day, I was calling. I had the office calling, just where are you? What's going on? So I do feel for them, and those are the kids that should be in school, and it's just, it's up to the parents, and I'm interested to see what happens in the fall or in August.
Do you think that that it's a viable option that they split the week? In other words, maybe they say the schools will be open 2 or 3 days a week. Let's say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The children will go to the physical school, and Tuesdays and Thursdays they will stay at home and do their homework and work with the parents on any kind of virtual follow-up that they might need. Do you see that as any kind of a viable option?
They talked about that. I think that's where I think it was option B for Hillsborough County. I have to go back and recheck, but I think that's what it was. It was, you know, a few days a week they would be at school, and then the other days they would be at home, which in all honesty, I mean, I think it is a good middleman, I guess, for those kids who really do need to be at school, and then it's good for the kids who can get all their work done and they can do e-learning, and then we're not spreading as many germs. I know that teachers are very clean, especially in their classrooms. So already, I mean, we're at Sam's and Costco loading up on the big bottles of hand sanitizer at the beginning of the year. They had mentioned that they're giving us a lot more of that when we go back. I think they may be giving us some of the paper masks, which is, the cloth masks are really hard. Right. I know that I like the face shield, so at least they can see my face. They can see that I'm smiling. I actually like those a lot. So we'll see what they say.
Jeremy, as a parent now, going through what you've gone through with the schooling, it's been an education for you and Chris. Were there times that you could go to Liam's teacher and get some direction or get some help with homework? Did she have office hours?
Yeah, the teachers have been fantastic. You just email them and they'll respond back within a matter of hours. So they've been fantastic. And listen, we all have to realize there's no roadmap for everything that all of us have been going through, and the teachers obviously included. And so everybody's just has to figure it out. And there was oftentimes where we wouldn't know what to do, and the teacher emailed back and said, listen, I'm figuring it out too. So as soon as I figure it out, I'll let y'all know. And but absolutely.
Jeremy, from a parent standpoint, how do you think that split option would work? Sending him to the school 3 days a week and then being home 2 days a week.
I personally don't like it at all. I prefer 1 week on, 1 week off. I think there's more consistency, and that's what you're seeing in corporate America. Logistics teams and finance teams are splitting their teams in half, and half the team goes, the A group goes, the first week of the month, and then they stay home the second week, and the B group goes the second week. So I like for the consistency for children to at least be 1 week on, 1 week off. The Monday, Wednesday, Friday start stop, I think is a little too much, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I was just thinking of it from the standpoint that at least you could work your work and personal schedules around that, so you would know for doctor's appointments, shopping, everything else, that if Liam's in school on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you can take care of those things, your meetings at work and all. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, you're focused on the homeschooling aspect of it.
Yeah, well, I think the advantage of the 1 week on, 1 week off is really for the parents, so that way they could stay at home and have that consistency, and the child care is easier. But that's just, I don't know, that's just what I think.
How would that work for you, Jess and Hailey, if the kids came to school 1 week and they were at home the next week?
I mean, I think it would be very similar to we're going for 3 days, they're staying home for 2 days. At least that way they get an extended period in the classroom. That was never, from my knowledge, that was never really talked about. I know they kind of talked about grades going in, like specific times or days, kind of similar to like a block schedule where they have longer class periods. So
yeah,
I think it's very similar. I do agree that it's really hard if they were to do the 3 days in, 2 days out for the parents who do have full-time jobs. Like my husband is an essential worker, so he was working this entire time. So I can only imagine some of the other parents who they both were essential workers, and then one of them had to stop working, and that's paychecks, that's money being taken out of their pocket. So yeah, I don't know, but I think it would be a good option.
Well, another option could be that half of the class goes 1 week and the other half goes the next week. That way the teachers have the students all the time in school, and the scenario that Jeremy brought up would then work for the parents at home. The more we talk about this, the more options seem to fall on the table. And unfortunately, it's getting to a fail-safe point where the administrations have got to make a determination, both not only within the school system, but also within the city political system, as to what they're going to dictate as to what they need to do for the best benefit of everybody. Got to be a tough decision.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah, we have because the administrators themselves don't really make that call. It's the superintendent and the school board that make that call, and they're the ones who will say, yes, you're opening your doors, or no, you're not. And if they're assigning specific schools, it's the school board that is figuring out which schools they are opening.
And so, Hailey, you haven't been teaching at all this summer. You've had the summer off.
Yeah, I have the summer off as a counselor. We only work the same schedule as a teacher, unless you're like the director, then you would go in a little bit early, but you're never teaching kids. It's just like they said. I mean, and like you guys said, the clock is ticking, and I don't think even our superintendent has an answer for us just quite yet, but these middle schools and high schools, there's a lot of logistics. We have somebody already doing the master schedule for 2,000 kids, but I can't imagine having to take that schedule and then like completely redo it, or, you know, take into consideration, well, you're going to go on this day, you're going to go on this day. Like, there's just so many logistics. And, you know, we have electives for kids, and these electives class, they push 40 to 70 in a class. I don't know how they're, you know, ever gonna, even if you cut that in half, that's still too many kids. So how do you do PE? It's very hard. We push 70 kids into a PE class.
Oh, that's tough.
Wow.
Well, we're unfortunately down to about our last minute for the show now, but I want to reiterate something Jeremy said at the top of the show, and that is that I honestly think that teachers are the most underappreciated and underpaid people in our society, and that we also need to mandate that coming out of this, we're putting an extra effort on the shoulders of our teachers and our educators, and they need to be compensated for that. But Jessica, Hailey, Jeremy, thank you very, very much for joining us on the show. I'm glad we were able to share the conversation, and I don't doubt that we're going to hear from a lot of our listeners as to, you know, what some of their thoughts are on the show also. So thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you.
We love you and we appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Love you all.
Good seeing you all
I love
again.
you. It's good seeing you.
And again, thank you, Mark, for producing the show. We appreciate it. And that'll do it for another session of Something to Talk About. Hope you'll all be with us again next week. We don't know what we'll be talking about yet, but we'll come up with a good one, I'm sure. But thanks again to Jess and Hailey and Jeremy for joining us. You all go out and make it a good week. Stay safe, stay protected, wear a mask.